You are fake news.
This video is brought to you by a brand new app designed to revolutionise the news landscape. News Voice gives you a personalised news feed by aggregating major news sites, as well as international and independent media. You get breaking news and up-to-date stories from multiple sources all in one place. Each news story shows multiple sources which are all tagged with their bias and perspective. It's a completely open and democratised platform for news, and it's completely free. Download the News Voice app from the link in the description. It won't cost you a cent. The other night, Australia's new Prime Minister Scott Morrison appeared on the project and was confronted about a comment he made on Twitter. Let's have a squiz at that.
Yesterday, you criticised the practice of teachers identifying transgender children. Last night we received a video from a young viewer who has been an advocate in this area for a long time. This is what she had to say.
My name is Evie McDonald, I'm 13 years old and I'm a transgender kid, and this is what I want to say to the Prime Minister. There are thousands of kids in Australia that are gender diverse, and we don't deserve to be disrespected like that through tweets from our Prime Minister. I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of attitudes like this. I went to a Christian school where I had to pretend to be a boy and spend weeks in conversion therapy. We get one childhood and mine was stolen from me by attitudes like this.
Jesus Christ, I wonder what he said.
We don't take kindly to your types around here.
Yeah, but no, he commented on a Daily Telegraph article about how teachers are supposedly being trained to identify transgender kids in the classroom and how that apparently has contributed to a 200% surge in the number of kids wanting to change their gender. We do not need gender whisperers in our schools. Let kids be kids. Well, call me a bigot, but I completely agree. Without actually seeing his tweet, that transgender kid's video message makes it seem like he said something bad.
There are thousands of kids in Australia that are gender diverse, and we don't deserve to be disrespected like that through tweets from our Prime Minister. I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of attitudes like this. I went to a Christian school where I had to pretend to be a boy and spend weeks in conversion therapy. We get one childhood and mine was stolen from me by attitudes like this.
Look, I don't agree with the idea of conversion therapy, but childhoods last longer than a few weeks, love. I think you might be over-dramatising this a bit. Anyway.
What do you have to say to her?
Well, I love all Australians and whatever background they come from. The point I was making was simply this. I want kids to be allowed to be kids, and I want parents to be respected as the parents of those children. I don't think teachers get to take the place of parents and the choices that families make. They are the choices that families should make together. There is a place for clinical advice, there is a place for clinical counselling, but at the end of the day, in our schools, I don't want to see teachers taking the role of parents.
But when you say let kids be kids, isn't this about allowing kids to be themselves, be who they are?
I was referring to a practice that has been put in place in schools where others are coming into that conversation and making observations and getting between the role of a parent and that child. And, you know, I believe in family, as we all do. It's a common value across Australia, and I don't think that parents should be supplanted by teachers.
Yeah, again, I've got no problem with any of that. Now, one of the gender experts that was mentioned in this Daily Telegraph article, Dr. Elizabeth Riley, was subsequently interviewed by Sky News. Let's have a look.
Thanks so much for your time. Why is this necessary? The Telegraph reports today that it has contributed to 236% surge in the number of children wanting a sex change in the last 3 years. Is that correct?
Okay, so firstly I just want to make clear that I work privately, so I only go to schools where I'm requested to come in. And it's not about teaching staff to recognise children with gender variance. It's about supporting the children that have come forward as gender variant.
Yeah, that's great, but the crux of the question was this 236% surge in kids wanting to change their gender. That wasn't addressed at all.
What do children say? And what's gender variant? And what's the difference between gender variant and transgender?
Okay, so the only indication for intervention, medical intervention, or any other intervention is if a young person has gender dysphoria. Now, gender dysphoria is when they're depressed and anxious and are sometimes suicidal about the fact that their gender assigned at birth is incongruent with how they see their gender identity.
Again with this gender assigned at birth shit. Nobody's assigned a gender at birth. A baby's sex is observed at birth or even months before birth. When this lady talks about gender, she's talking about how someone feels. When a doctor or midwife talks about gender, they're talking about biological sex, a physical attribute. If they were to say, sorry miss, your baby only has one arm, it'd be because the baby only has one arm, not because the baby feels like they only have one arm. Jesus, fuck, this shouldn't be this complicated.
The examples used in the paper this morning that involves teachers are taught to identify phrases such as, I feel different, I'm androgynous, I'm born with two spirits. I mean, what child says I'm androgynous?
No child says that. No child says that on their own accord anyway.
Okay, so some of the things I've said have been taken out of context. So we're not looking for teachers to recognise anything.
Okay.
So the schools that contact me have a family, parents who've contacted them and said our child needs to do a social transition.
Based on what? And what do you mean by social transition?
What do you mean by social transition? Does that mean...
So when the young person needs to be identified in the gender that they weren't assigned at birth. So a child who was assigned a girl at birth, based on their genitals, is now identifying as a male.
I thought girl was a gender and male was a biological sex.
And is clear about that. And it needs to be consistent, persistent and insistent.
Oh, it needs to be consistent, persistent and insistent. Gotcha.
I guess some parents are worried that children maybe as young as 5 or 6 or even a little bit older even think that that's an option. Why do they know that it's an option to be identified in a different way?
So with the little kids, it's usually the parents that are picking up something. Often the children are completely oblivious. They've just totally been supported to express themselves and be themselves. And so they're not even aware that there's something called gender dysphoria or they're experiencing something different.
Right, so when you said it needs to be consistent, persistent and insistent, what you meant was the child doesn't even need to know what gender is. As long as the parent thinks their son's a bit girly or their daughter's a bit butchy, bang, we have ourselves another candidate for social transition. I really don't see anything wrong with the Prime Minister's comments. I mean, this lady gets called into schools to provide expert advice with regard to so-called gender variant kids. Now, I'm not denying that some people experience gender dysphoria, but I can't see how a 236% surge in the number of kids claiming to experience it can occur without any outside influence. And when you consider the fact that we only saw the end of the controversial Safe Schools program in late 2017, I can't help but concur with the Prime Minister's comments, whole-fucking-heartedly. If you're not familiar with the insane shit show that was Australia's Safe Schools program, I'll leave you with a bit of an outline. See ya.
Call the member for Dawson.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I rise as a voice for thousands of parents who have been shocked when they discover how the ironically named Safe Schools program is indoctrinating their children. When those parents consider just how unsafe this program is, they wonder why the federal government is allowing it to be implemented in schools, much less spending $8 million of taxpayer money to fund it. Some of the things that the Safe Schools Coalition Australia are recommending to school students include pornographic web content, sex shops, adult online communities and sex clubs. The Safe Schools All of Us teaching resource directs students to the LGBT organisation 2010. On the 19th of January this year, 2010 hosted a hands-on workshop for youth on sex toys and sadomasochistic practices. All of Us also directs students to the website of the LGBT youth organisation -18, which produced most of the Safe Schools resources. -18 advises students on chest binding, penis tucking, sex toys and sex advice such as penis and vagina sex is not the only sex and certainly not the ultimate sex. -18 links to the Tool Shed, an online pornographic sex shop offering a range of sex toys, sadomasochistic items and pornography. -18 recommends Scarletine, a teen sex advice site that promotes group sex, sex toys and sadomasochism. -18 is an event partner with Melbourne Gay Bar, the GH Hotel, which features erotic homosexual entertainment. Safe Schools recommends the transgender organisation Seahorse Club Victoria, which in turn recommends the fetish Abode Club. Abode is located at the same address as the Parlour Lounge Sex Club, which provides sadomasochistic entertainment and rooms for sex. Safe Schools is funded via the Foundation for Young Australians, whose partner agencies implement the Safe Schools program. New South Wales partner Family Planning New South Wales offers detailed information on oral sex. Tasmanian partner Working It Out recommends YouTube channels featuring such things as Gay Guy Sees First Transgender Vagina and Anal for FTMs. These links to sexually explicit web content and external organisations of an adult or erotic nature raise serious concerns about child safety. Further, Safe Schools provides instructions to children on how to hide their internet browsing history. It advises them to ask for restricted websites that are blocked at school and would be blocked at home to be unblocked by their teachers without parental knowledge. If parents knew that this type of material their children was being exposed to, they would probably not let them go to school. If someone proposed exposing a child to this material, the parents would probably call the police because it would sound a lot like grooming work that a sexual predator might undertake.
Recession, session! Give me better times, give me better times. Recession, session! Give me better times, better times.